Welcome to the Big Woods Bucks podcast. I'm your host, Hal Blood. Sitting here with my co-host, Good Lee Shands again.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. And today, our special guest is Nathan Nelson from Poplar, Wisconsin, also known as Popple, Wisconsin. And Nathan's got into buck tracking out in Wisconsin, and he said he does a little bit with his bow. We're going to find out a little bit about that. But you probably, if you've seen his name, he's edited some videos for us and done a great job at that. And so we're going to talk to him a little bit about what goes on out there in Wisconsin, other than the wolves chasing the deer.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Yeah. So anyways, welcome, Nathan, and glad to have you on.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's definitely an honor to be here.
Yeah. So what do you want to talk about?
Well, I could give you a little background maybe. I'm a youth pastor for a living, so I got a church here that I serve at. It's actually a church that I grew up in, Mission Covenant Church. Been here as youth pastor since 2016. But before that, I served as a youth pastor up in northern Minnesota. So I've got some big woods experience, throughout the Midwest. Also done a little bit of hunting in Michigan. But my dad, he was a diehard bow hunter. He never did any tracking, really. I mean, he did some ground hunting a lot when he was younger, and they did a lot of deer drives back in that day. But I basically am the one that's just kind of picked up buck tracking just on my own because it's something that I've enjoyed doing, and because I read some books, and I read your book, Hal, and also the Benoit books. So that's what got me started doing this in the first place. But I definitely picked up the hunting bug from my dad. He loves it. I still do some bow hunting with him, and but my main passion for hunting is actually the buck tracking now. That has definitely passed up any sort of bow hunting in terms of enjoyment for me. So I love bow hunting too, but for me there's something about the adventure and the chase tracking that's just so much fun. So yeah, that's a little bit about me there.
Yep, good. You mean you've caught the fever?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's great. Youth pastor, and you taking any of them youths out deer hunting?
I do a little bit. One of the guys that actually has filmed on my channel, a guy named Josh Walsh, he was in my youth ministry, and he's been in quite a few videos of mine. I've actually got a few guys in my church that are part of my team that do some filming. So guys like Andy Holsclaw, he does quite a bit of filming for the channel, and Dan Shafter, those are guys that also do some stuff. My wife, she does a little bit of filming, and a little bit of hunting, but when we got young kids, she doesn't get out very much to do that. So, we got a pretty good sized team up here, got quite a few guys that are doing some filming. So it's been going really well. And I really enjoy a lot of the editing and piecing together stories and crafting films. So that's been part of my passion for this as well, as it's kind of a creative outlet for me to do something fun that I really enjoy and be able to share that story with a lot of other people. So yeah, that's part of the passion.
We want to see some more stories from them Wisconsin buck trackers,
Yeah, I just got to get better at killing them. I'm good at chasing them around.
Hey, when you haven't chased them around as long as I did before I got my first one tracking.
How long did it take you?
7 years.
Yeah, I was about 7 years before I got my first one too. I've killed two of them tracking, but they're nothing really of size yet. One of them, I was pretty excited because I snuck right up to him when he was feeding. And when I shot him, I saw the one side, and I'm like, oh, he looks like a nice 2-year-old or whatever. And based on the track and everything I was following, I was like, yeah, that's about what I would figure he was going to be. But I didn't look real hard at the antlers. And I got up to him, and he was missing his whole left side. and he ended up being just a 6-pointer on the one side, just a dink buck. So I was like, shoot, it was a little bit of a bummer there, but being able to sneak up on him like that, it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. I mean, when I caught up to him, he was out in this black spruce swamp, and that's like a prime spot to find one up here because the ground is so soft. We get this like muskeg, or I don't know if that's what you call it, but it's just really soft ground, so you can just poke along real quiet. And my wind was just barely going out of the direction of where he was at, so I was thinking if he swings to the right, I'm going to be hosed. But he was just to the left. So honestly, when you're tracking, most of the time it seems like that wind kills me more than anything else does. If you get one swirl in the wind, it's over. And especially up here in wolf country where these wolves are, they are hunting these deer year round, and they are on edge all the time, and they don't wait around for nothing. So honestly, one of the parts that's been hardest for me up here is to just lay eyes on a buck. They seem to figure you out, and they don't wait around at all. They very seldom ever let you walk up on them. So that's been I don't know what it's like out where you guys are. Maybe it's the same out where you are. I just have the experience out here in wolf country. But these deer, when they hear stuff, they'll start running before they even see what it is most of the time. So laying eyes on them is very tough.
Now out here, we just walk up to them, shoot them, right, Lee? They just stand around. We just walk up and shoot them.
Yeah, they're easy to hunt out.
I can help you with that. I can help you with that scent thing,
How's that?
I notice you don't wear all your woolies.
I actually, you guys just got me one of those jackets this last year, so I was able to wear that now. And that, amazingly, this last season, I walked right up on a buck, and then I screwed up the shot. But
it's we can joke about it, but it's true. The properties of wool is naturally odor resistant, If you wear all the synthetic stuff, it grabs all the odors. But yeah, you'll see a difference wearing all your wool.
Mostly the quiet.
It's been fun to use that jacket so far. The material's quiet. Slipping through the woods has been really nice with it. Also, just temperature wise, it seems to work well for me. Sometimes I got to throw a little bit underneath if it's really cold, but for the most part, you put that thing on, and if you're moving, I've felt pretty good in it, and don't overheat nearly as much as I did when I was wearing some of my other stuff. I used to wear like you probably seen some of those films that you're referring to where I was wearing that like fleece, blaze orange, and I definitely get overheated with that.
Yeah, you can't. The wool breathes, and if you don't have a liner in it, you don't need any liners. It's warm enough, and it breathes, and yeah. Yeah, I was watching you there with that stuff on. I was like, what the heck is he doing?
It's funny, though, because out here, nobody wears flannel up here. Nobody does it. So it's all, pretty much everybody wears the synthetic stuff. So I'm kind of, the old timers, I will say, the old timers back when my dad was growing up, they used to wear a lot of the wool and flannel, and sometimes a lot of guys would wear even the red checkered ones. And so that was a little bit of what the culture was back then, but there's very little of, I don't know if I've seen hardly anybody that wears flannel in my area. So as soon as I started wearing that, all the guys were like, oh, now you really look like a buck tracker.
Yeah. Well, them old timers with their wool probably killed more bucks out there too, didn't they?
Oh man, hunting has changed a lot up here since those days. I've actually been kind of doing a little bit of a deep dive on some of the history up in my area, and there was a lot of different hunting styles. And you guys it probably was the same out where you are, but like when my dad was growing up, it was a lot of subsistence hunting. So people would, they would kill strictly for food. They'd go to their deer camp, and they'd sometimes be there for a month straight, and then logging camps, a lot of that kind of stuff. And they would hunt hard, to get the meat that they needed for the year. Whereas now it's a lot different strategies. We have baiting up here now, so that also complicates things. Because every deer is extremely educated to human presence. because of these bait sites.
Yeah. It also changes where the way the bucks move, because the does are mainly, they're hogged around them bait sites, and then them bigger bucks have to go there, so it changes their travel patterns.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually, it can make finding the tracks from the road a lot easier, because generally hunters are baiting closer to the road. So like if you notice in all my films, very seldom am I ever leaving the truck until I find a track. And for the most part, I can find a respectable track every single time I take out every morning. Now, it doesn't mean that I can find a slammer, but there's enough bait sites around the road. The problem is, though, is that you're probably going to be encroaching on someone's zone where they've been hunting, and hunters can be a little territorial about their bait sites. So that's not the my mentor, Todd Havel. He's been trying to tell me to not even hunt in areas where there's baiting, just because in his experience, baiting really makes tracking hard, because you have this concentration of all of this deer sign, and then you spend all day looking at the ground trying to stay on this track. But in all my years of tracking up here, you're gonna come across a bait site every once in a while, and there's really no way to avoid it. And there's even some guys that bait in states that they're not supposed to bait in. So, and I'm sure that happens up in Maine too, somewhat, but it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I remember when we hunted a few years in the UP in Michigan, it was the same way. The bucks. I tracked a buck one day that I think he went by 5 bait sites in one day, and nobody was in their shooting shacks at any of them, or they'd have killed him. It was during the day.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of the bait hunters, though, during rifle season, they're only going to be there on the weekends because they got to work. You get a few diehards that are out there the whole time. But when you think of like buck tracking in this area, there really is no culture of it, because bait hunting has been such a prevalent thing. And a lot of the Minnesota hunters actually come to Wisconsin because they like to hunt over the bait. So, northern Minnesota is like a ghost town right now, because there's very little deer because the wolves have just hammered them, and you can't bait up there. So we get a lot of the Minnesotans that come over to our area to do the baiting, and we've still got a decent deer herd in northern Wisconsin. There's, of all the areas that I track up here in the north, in the Midwest up here, our area has the most deer by far. But the wolves are definitely hitting them hard. And the part that we're having a hard time finding now is the age structure is just so imbalanced right now. Because, it's just been, they haven't been giving out doe tags as much. So people are shooting, a lot of young bucks, and we have a lot of just people that shoot younger deer just in general. And I've shot a few myself, so it's not a knock on anybody that does that. But it's definitely a different day and age. When I was growing up in the 2000s and the early 2010s and stuff like that, that era, there was some absolute giants running around up here during that time. So it's a lot harder to find that now, but hunting's still pretty decent in this area. The worst area that I've ever hunted is the UP of Michigan. Absolutely terrible deer herd up there. You can drive all day long and hardly cut a decent sized track. I mean, I put on 600 miles driving the one trip between me and a buddy that were there, and we found one decent track. So it is tough hunting in the UP right now.
Here's a few words from our sponsors. They're all top-notch people. We're glad to have them aboard. Make sure you support them. That's what keeps us going. Being the low-tech guy I am, there's one thing I've learned to embrace with technology, and it's my OnX. I used to carry maps and GPS when it finally came out and stuff, but the OnX has eliminated that because I've got my GPS in my phone now with my OnX app. I can mark everything in that. It's helpful that I can show other people by putting a pin in if I want to send somebody to a place. Being a guide, that's important, I can give them the pin, put it in theirs, I text it to them, whatever. So if you want to get your OnX, get your Big Woods Bucks code BWB and get you 20% off, but I highly recommend it. Give you a little update. Skinner Sights. We all know they're the best site going, but it's a great company because Andy and the crew there are innovative and they're always thinking up either new models to make a site for, improve the sites, making mounts for scopes, and now they've come on with their own line of scopes and red dots. Whatever Andy does in the company, it's top-notch, first quality, and they stand behind everything, and we're glad to have them as a partner, and we hope you'll try their sites, and you can trust your life with those, and they're going to get you the game. So get your Skinner Sights, and you can trust me that you're going to be glad you did. Just wanted to talk a little bit about minus 33 in the wool they have, which I believe is best wool going, whether it's base layers or your socks or whatever you're wearing. You got to have wool. I've been stressing that for people for years, to wear your wool, whether it's the outerwear or even your base layers and socks. I've been to the tour of the plant, see how they make their socks, and it's quality, the fit is right, and they're going to be long-lasting. I've got socks I've had now for several years, and they look like I'll have them for several years more before they even think about wearing out. So I trust my life to wool, and you can too. Minus 33. All right, back to the podcast. I know I haven't been there for quite a long time, been 10 years or more than 10, 12 years at least, but the UP, we hunted up in them Porcupine Mountains there.
Oh, yeah.
It was not a lot of deer, but you could find a good track about any day. And then
You could. Okay.
Yeah, back then, and then in northern Minnesota, we made one trip. Me and Chris made a trip there, and nobody tracked, so you could cut a track from the road anywhere out there then, up by northern up there, right on the edge of them boundary waters there.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a beautiful area up there. You got a lot of nice rolling hills and rocky areas. You got moose country up there. We don't have any moose here in Wisconsin, though sometimes people do see a roaming moose that goes through our area. But when I go to northern Minnesota, that's one of my favorite parts about hunting up there, is because you're in moose country, so you see moose sign. I found a big moose shed in the UP a couple years ago. That was a super fun experience. And people have told me that live there that's a very rare find for the area that I was in. So it's pretty cool when you can be in moose country up here. I wish that we had more moose. I mean, you guys, I was looking at the stats, like Minnesota's got like 3,000 or 4,000 moose, where you guys, I don't know if this is correct, but the thing said that you guys got like 60 or 70,000 moose. Is that correct?
That's what they say.
And we used to have a lot more than that. They used to tell us we only had that many, and there was, at one time in Maine, if we've got 60 or 70,000 now, we had to have 200,000 minimum back years ago. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say, Al? There had to be 3 times as many.
Yeah. And they still don't give enough permits out up here. It's ridiculous. They give like 4,000 permits for a year, and we're not even, you can't even keep up with the calves being born, So there's too many. That's why we ended up with that tick problem, and half of them died off, So,
but there's no moose season in anywhere around here. So, the ones that we do have, there's some big ones, and every once in a while people will get like a video of one running into Duluth, which is a city here not too far from me, and they'll get some 40, 50, 60-inch bulls that come walking right into the top side of town up there in the north edge. And that's pretty cool. I've seen some videos of bulls that are like fighting up here that they'll see up in northern Minnesota. And when they go that long without being hunted by humans, they can get some age class on them, and there's some giant moose.
That's what happened in Maine when they first opened up our season in the 80s. They were shooting, I don't know, probably a half a dozen to a dozen Boone and Crockett moose about every year. in the 80s. It was crazy.
Yeah.
From the road.
Yeah, they weren't even hunting them.
People drove around the logging roads and just shot them in the road or in the cuts on the side of the road.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot easier when there's a big population of them.
And like you said, the age class too, because they didn't hunt them in Maine for 45 years. From 1935 to 1980, they weren't hunted. So, yeah, the age class was crazy good. I mean, there were just big ones everywhere.
The part that's interesting to me is how do you guys not have wolves in Maine? You've got the perfect habitat for them. Is it because they did such a good job killing them off, 100 years ago, or like, why do you guys not have any?
Yeah, they killed them off and they never came back. And then we got infested. A lot of people don't realize we have coyotes now, and we've had them for, 60 something years, but they're an invasive species. Coyotes aren't native to Maine. Once the wolves were gone, we ended up with coyotes.
So what a lot of people don't understand is the East Coast wolves are different than your Western wolves. They're not the gray wolf. We had the red wolf here. So when the settlers came in, there was a red wolf, and it's only, a good-sized red wolf would weigh 100 pounds or so, They're not the huge wolves you'd get out west. And then the settlers, they killed them all because they were making farm country, and they, back then they killed all the wolves they could. And they pretty much, in the meantime, in Quebec, Quebec is right above us. And then they were settling all that country too, turning that into farmland. And I'm sure they killed those red wolves off. And then that was it. The St. Lawrence River it's basically like a line they don't cross, because it's the big river coming in from the ocean there to go to, the Great Lakes. And that seems to be a barrier for them.
Interestingly, with the political environment of Maine, I'm surprised that they haven't tried to bring in wolves, reintroduce them.
They have.
Okay.
Yeah.
We might have to edit that.
Yeah. We won't say that anymore.
Yeah. Oh, they're still trying to. There's everywhere in the country. There's the anti-hunting groups that think the wolves ought to be everywhere, anyways. And they've done things like, we know in the past, how you can buy wolves, pet wolves and stuff. They do that and then let them go and stuff like that. But yeah, there's really there's no evidence of wolves around. But our coyotes, they say, they studied back when the coyotes moved in, and they really kind of filled a niche here, and because there was no wolves, and they got pretty thick for a while, and now they've leveled off and gone down, especially up north. They've gone downhill. I think it's harder for them to make a living in the winter, but they started studying the coyotes' genes, and they found that there's I think it's an average of 17% wolf genes in our coyotes, because the coyotes we have, they came from the West, and I guess they figured on the way they were interbred or something like that. So we don't need wolves because we got coyotes that got wolf genes in them, so that's good enough.
Yeah. We got the scenario where there's bear population that's exploding up here, and you can't get a tag. I mean, it's 7 to 8, 9 years to get a bear tag here in Wisconsin. So those things, they take out a lot of deer. And then, we do get the occasional, mountain lion in our area, though they're not usually resident to this area, but, I've seen one with my own eyes, up here. So and people get them on trail camera every once in a while. But yeah, between that, the coyotes, the wolves, the bears, Bobcats actually, they're a pretty fierce predator up here too. They can get pretty big. We can get some real big ones up here. But yeah, there's no shortage of predators in the Midwest. And it makes for a challenging hunt. But the one thing I will say that I actually like about when there is predators is that it keeps the deer population low enough that when you're tracking, you don't have to look at the ground quite as much. It's a lot harder to find a good track, but then you're not. It makes it much more smooth sailing when you actually jump on a deer track and you can follow them pretty quickly. So that's one advantage.
Yeah. So you've seen our films and edited some of them. So what do you think is the main difference? You've spoken about some things, but in tracking out that way than here.
Well, see, I don't have enough experience with what you guys got out there, but I'll just say that some of the things that I know that are extra challenges up in our area is just how thick the woods is. And I don't know what your habitat is like up there, but they log this area pretty hard. And so when it regrows, it is gnarly. And a lot of the times when I'm trying to make the final sneak on a buck, it's brutal because you're trying to dip and dive. And I mean, there was one buck that just a couple years ago, I got 20 yards from him and I can't see him. And he busted up and I never even, I don't know what he looked like. Not even a flash, nothing. So when you're getting into that tight of quarters and you're trying to, I'm literally at times I'm belly crawling to try to get through brush to get close to this deer just to be able to lay eyes on him. And then they don't hang around very long. So that's one of the challenges. What is the habitat like where you guys are? Is it just gnarly thick everywhere or is it usually pretty good?
Have a kind of a mix.
Yeah.
It's like you said, if it's a place that's been cut, when it grows back into regen, it gets pretty thick for a while. And then, 20 years later or whatever, the smaller stuff dies out or tips over and goes back. But Maine is, some places in Maine, it all depends on who owns the land and who's cutting it. Some places have been pretty well trashed and it's hard to hunt, but up in this area where we're doing the podcast, one of the things that I noticed in this area, the smaller landowners, they haven't cut it quite so hard, and there's still places up here where you can find some, mature pieces of woods or woods that are, you can see in and track good and not have to worry about walking in a brush pile. Some places, when you get a little bit further south, all depending on how close you are to the mill. If you're real close to the paper mill, it gets cut a lot worse.
Yep.
The other thing that people don't realize about Maine is it's not all the same. Like the woods and even the terrain varies a lot because Maine's a pretty big state too. It's the biggest state like in New England, So in southern Maine was the typical farm country up to the central part and then kind of up some of it up north in the northeast. And that is reverted back into woodlots like you'd think about, which the woods are fairly good, grew up with a lot of hardwood and stuff. And then the mountains are on the western side of Maine, all the way up the whole west side of Maine, probably 2/3 of the way up. You got mountains and ridges. And then when you head east, north, and east, other than the Appalachian Trail mountains, it basically flattens out and it's rolling ridges. Not flat, but it's rolling ridges. Down east is what we call down east. It's where Maine kind of makes the point. If you went up the ocean to the point where it heads north, that's we call the down east area, and that's low ground, probably similar to what you have. There's a lot of bogs, streams, slow running streams, and it's more spruce and fir, the softwood. And that's probably gnarlier, I would say, than over this way. Because we get hardwoods. We got a lot of hardwood ridges, and when they cut those, like Lee said, depending on the landowner, some of those just get selectively cut, and you can still hunt pretty good in those areas. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, one thing that we don't have that you guys have is the mountains. We get some rolling hills, but generally, if you're getting much more than 100 foot of elevation change, that's pretty significant for my area. So, sometimes we'll get some rock ridges and some, rugged terrain, but it's nothing like what you guys are dealing with, where you got thousands of feet of elevation. And so that can be nice in the sense that, like, you don't get quite as tired. I'm sure you guys, it's just brutal going up and down those hills sometimes. I saw a video of you, Hal. I can't remember which one it was, but you were climbing up this, it looked like a sheer cliff. And I was like, what is he doing? Like, if you slipped, you would, like, it would be bad. I can't remember what video that was.
Was
that
it
might
a
have
short
been
one?
That big Brutus or something. I can't remember if that was Brutus film or what. But
we did come off in a cliff on Brutus there. He went down, slid down. It was in the hardwoods. He slid down pretty much a cliff where you have to, like, you either sit down and ride it down or hold on to a tree and let yourself down. And then there was another one. I thought it was a shorter one that I tracked this buck down over. He went down over a cliff in the softwood, got all the way down almost to the bottom, and he couldn't go anymore. It was a sheer cliff of 50 feet. So he turned around and went back up. And of course, I didn't realize it because he kind of just went down like in a triangle, like. Got all the way down there and had to climb back out of it. And he was literally, he would jump up onto the next level on a ledge, and then find a way. He'd walk one way or the other, and then find a way to make another jump up. I bet it took us an hour to do that.
oh,
He probably did it.
that's
in
brutal.
5 minutes,
Yeah, but you're crawling and climbing to get up that stuff. It goes to show just how powerful those deer are. You think about the ability to jump and how far they can jump. I mean, we there's no way we can keep up with them, with what they can do. And then they can slip and navigate through some of the tightest, craziest spots. It's incredible what they're able to do at that, especially when they're going that fast.
For all you big woods buck hunters, if you're looking for an ideal base camp for hunting in the big woods, in the Adirondacks and Tug Hill, you got to call our friends at Christmas and Associates. For over 35 years, they've been providing land and camps to sportsmen, 5 to 50 acres, rivers, streams, and ponds in some of the best locations, affordable prices, and in-house financing with low monthly payments. They can even build their Adirondack-style cabins on property you already own. For more info, call Christmas and Associates at 1-800-229-7843 or go to landandcamps.com. Visit Christmas and Associates on Facebook. And you can't even, I tell people, you can't walk. I don't care how fast you can walk. You can't walk as fast as a buck can. So you're always losing ground until they stop.
Yep.
Yep. Remarkable animals.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll find one. Like this last season, I tracked a buck, and he was just a beautiful buck. Dipped his antlers in the snow. You can just see this massive beam print in the snow. And that I was getting so fired up on that one. But he was up on top of a rock ridge, and probably, I don't know if you'd say maybe 50-foot elevation change. Well, he's sitting up on top of that rock ridge, and he's looking over his back trail with the wind blowing to him. That's another thing that I notice up here, is that often the bucks bed with the wind coming off of their trail. So if anything starts following their tracks, the wind will blow right to them, and then they booger out. I don't know if that's a wolf thing. Maybe that's something that they do out where you guys are, but generally speaking, especially after you bump a buck the second time, they will keep the wind right on their back the whole time. I almost killed a buck one time because I had tracked him one day, and it was this year that I can't remember what year it was, but we had just crazy deep snow. If it was like 2019 or 2020, somewhere around there, we had just crazy deep snow in November. And I found his track crossing the road. I jumped on it, and he ran straight with the wind to his back, and there was a little knob, and he swung all the way around the knob and bedded right on the back side of it. So I'm following it along like this, and I can't see him. My scent blows to him. He dips off the backside and runs. And so I went back to that spot a few days later, and he was with another buck, and they were eating acorns, because there was a good spot for acorns. And so that I figured they were going to be in that area again. And sure enough, his track was there. He was within a buck, and they go running off, and they go in the exact same direction. I'm like, he's going to that same point because it worked for him last time. And they don't want to run very far when it's, up over knee height snow. So he boogies over to that spot. And so when I was getting close, I decided I'm going to swing around. And instead of going right to that point where his track was leading me, I swung to the left. And as I was swinging to the left, all of a sudden something busted to my right. And it ended up being the smaller buck that was with him. And I tried to shoot him, and I forgot to turn my safety off. And so he went away. But then I kept moving a little bit further. And sure enough, that buck bedded in the exact same spot. Like, the impression in the snow from the couple days before was where he laid in, and he figured out that was a good spot where he could hide, and you couldn't see him until it was too late. And their instincts are so amazing up here. They oftentimes, I notice, they'll bed right up on the high point, so they got that high advantage over you, and then they can look down. Another thing that's been kind of cool to observe is if you get down, like sometimes they'll take me into these lowland, wetland, swampy conifer areas, and they don't bed on the front edge of it. They'll walk all the way through that nasty junk, and they get right to the back side of it, right where it opens up on hardwoods or something, and they bed right there. So you got to walk through all the crap, and then they've got a quick, easy escape route into the hardwoods, and it's over. So those are some of the things that have been kind of some fun observations that I've been able to make about them over the years.
I think your wind thing might be because where it's flatter country, the wind is more steady. I don't even worry about the wind up here unless I think I'm close, but ours usually will bed down where they watch their back track, and they might have the wind in their back so they can smell anything behind them too. So they're watching, and usually they'll go up on a ridge or a high point, but that's a lot of times what they do, and I think they do it maybe because they know the wind is going to switch anyway, so they'd rather see what's coming behind them, anything on their track. And usually they'll do it where they'll walk through an opening, and then they'll tuck into a thicket and get right behind a little spruce tree or fir with all the limbs, and they'll lay behind it so they can look through the limbs. You'll never see them laying there like that. You'll never catch them till they get up. But sometimes the bucks will also put the wind behind them when you're tracking them, but it can't last forever here. Sooner or later the wind will change, or they'll change directions or something. You'll notice when they're behind them because they'll be walking along. Then all of a sudden you'll see them make 2 or 3 jumps, and they'll pick the pace up a little bit because you got too close. They're not really worried about you, but because they can smell you, so they just try to keep a distance,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I probably almost every buck that I've ever tracked up here, as soon as you jump them, they put the wind to their back. It is almost ingrained in them.
Yeah,
so
I think it's the steady...
a lot of years of me just beating my head against the wall, frustrated because you just can't even lay eyes on them. And then the other part that's also interesting is that and this is maybe a little more of a challenge with our area, is I don't think that we have quite as expansive of public land in Wisconsin, at least, as what you guys have. So there's a lot of times when I take out and you'll find a good track, but you're finding the good track because he's hanging a little bit closer to the private land. And so there's numerous times when I'll be on a track and it's like, oh boy, if I see he's anywhere near private land, sometimes I won't even take the track because I'm like, I know exactly where he's going. He's going right for the private land. It's like they've got a sixth sense. Either that or maybe it's the bait piles. That could also be part of it too. That's what's drawing them into those areas. But it is incredibly frustrating to get on a track. Like I was just telling you about that buck that was bedded on that ridge up top. I busted him for the first time out of that spot, and he went for 1.5 miles right to the private land in a straight shot, just went right for it. And I'm getting frustrated. Like, I'm running out. He's got to be bedded here sometime. They rarely ever go more than 0.5 mile or mile at the most. And he just kept cruising. And sure enough, he went right out to the road, and it's like, well, nothing I can do. It's private land for miles ahead. And, I was in a good chunk of timber. All he had to do was go any direction but the one direction he went, and I would have been able to get on him. So that's maybe a little bit of a unique challenge. So usually I'll try to find areas that there's bigger, more expansive chunks of land. But inevitably you're gonna go where you find the track. Now my style is maybe a little different than you guys, because you guys probably are, a certain area that you want to go, and then you're just hiking through the woods till you find that track, and you're probably going to find it in an area where you're not setting up near private land. So maybe that's a slight difference, because I don't know where I'm going to end up that day. I just take out and I go wherever the roads take me and wherever I find a track. So that's maybe a little difference, but
yeah, that's quite a bit of difference.
You said that you've read Hal's book, so you'd know what a signpost, like in Maine, one of the things that we talk about a lot is how in Maine they almost always make their signpost rubs on a brown ash. But when we went up to Ontario and hunted, which was just up above Minnesota, we found you'd still find them on brown ash occasionally, but their main tree that they were working on up there was willow. Do you guys have brown ash and willow in Wisconsin, or what? Or do you have signposts in the area that you hunt, and what kind of trees are they on?
yeah, so I've actually got black ash. Well, we call it black ash, but it'd probably be the same thing as what you guys have. I've got some black ash even on my own property, and I never see signposts on them for whatever reason. I mean, on my property, I've got 3 acres of beautiful, exactly what you guys talk about in your videos, where you get that little drainage low spot and it all filters through. I'll find an occasional rub on the ash trees, but I just don't see much of a pattern of, honestly, I don't find a whole lot of signpost rubs up here. They're very few and far between. I think the ones that I generally find them on are like a spruce tree, something that's got a lot of sticky, pitch and sap and stuff. I'll find them occasionally on that, but I'm trying to think of what other species I would see them. I don't see them regular enough to even be able to piece together a pattern on what tree they really prefer, because it's just so seldom that I find them.
I thought because in Ontario there was so much of that brown ash, or it is black ash. If you look in the tree book, it's black ash. They just call it brown ash here, but I think there was so much of it out there that it was too common. I believe, after studying all these years, that they seek out a tree that is like the least common trees in the woods that still hold scent good. And I would think those willows, it's a kind of willow, you've probably seen them. They get probably, I've seen them 6 inches in diameter. They never get very tall. And they got that kind of
corky bark.
Yeah, flaky bark on them. That's the ones that were most of the ones I ever found in Ontario was on those willows. I did find one red pine, and that was, I think, the only red pine tree I saw out there. but I just think because the willow was the least common tree, and then when you get down out of the north, it'll be hemlock and red cedar. You get down into Massachusetts and below is red cedar. So it does vary, and every one of them trees it seems to be on, it seems to be the least common tree in that area. And white oak is another one. White oak's pretty uncommon, right?
Yeah. We don't have hardly any of those up where I'm at. Little bur oak.
Yeah, but a white oak I have, and I've found them in southern Maine, but Chris in Rhode Island has found some nice, good-sized white oaks that were signposts. So there's something to that, I think, that it's they're seeking out a tree that's not as common because they're signposting it for a particular reason, and that's just my theory on it, but I think it's got to be pretty close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The interesting thing, too, is like right now, we're getting just pounded by the emerald ash borer. So my land, I've pretty much lost every ash tree on my property right now. And I just discovered that they're all dying this last year. So that's a little bit frustrating, but it's going to change the woods big time. I'm sure that there's going to be some regrowth that happens of ash trees in those swamps. But I had huge ash trees on my property. I cut down one of them, and they're really slow growing tree. I don't know if they're the same out where you guys are, but they get really, really tight growth rings on them. And when I cut one of them down, just recently, it was maybe 12 inches, across. And that thing was 100 years old.
Yeah.
So
that's a brown ash?
It's like that black ash. Ash.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've got some that are way bigger. I've got some that are probably, I don't know, maybe 18, 20 inches across. So, those trees, I wouldn't be surprised if those were, the regrowth from when the settlers came and chopped down the trees for the first time in our area.
Yeah. They do grow slow. I think it's because they grow in the wet ground. They just doesn't allow them to grow as fast. But I've got one. It was a nice one. I had known about it since I'd been hunting up here, and the beavers cut it down. So I went in the spring and I dragged it out with my snowmobile. I made a post out of it in my cellar. But when I cut the top off at, say, it would have been maybe, a little over 6 feet high, 7 feet high, where I cut it off, was probably 6 inches in diameter, had 80 growth rings. And that had been rubbed almost from when it was little, so it's flat almost to the middle of the tree.
No way. Yeah, I'd never see that.
I would say the bucks had rubbed that for 60 years.
Wow. That's crazy. I've never seen that up here, not to that magnitude. I've noticed that certain bucks like to rub on certain trees. Like certain deer, for instance, really like a tag alder, and so you'll go around and you see all these bright red rubs everywhere because that's if you're more of a wet ground, obviously for the tag alder, and then I'll see some bucks that they really like the aspen, saplings, the popple saplings, and just shred those things up, and some of them, they never rub on anything big. They like the little whippy stuff, and they're shredding it. They're a big buck. They just, I don't see as much of those rubs up here that are like on 6, 8, 10-inch diameter trees. You just very rarely see that. If I do, I'll see maybe some tine marks shredded up it. It seems like a lot of the trees that they're going to rub up here are going to be more in that, 3-inch diameter, right around there is kind of like this, just right like that. Nice size tree, and they'll hit those pretty hard. Sometimes they'll hit the balsams. We got a lot of balsam trees up in my area as well. So one thing we don't have very much of anymore is cedar. We used to have lots of cedar back, a long time ago. But I just don't know if that stuff just doesn't regrow back very good after the logging come in and cut it. But man, if you can find a cedar swamp, that is a pristine spot for winter habitat for bucks. I mean, you'll find lots of tracks and signs in those areas. Even especially if you're tracking late November, early December, you're going to find a lot of deer concentrating to those areas.
Yeah. They claim in Maine that cedar's one of the few, things that they can eat in the winter and maintain their body weight.
Yep. It's interesting because, like, I've noticed on certain lakes or different areas, like I was in northern Minnesota by this lake, and they had a bunch of cedar trees along the edge of the lake, and literally you can see this browse line across the lake. There is not a single branch of cedar. And it looks like, literally, it looks like it's like a picture across the line, like a straight line, a level line all the way across that lake. And so, I mean, they'll hit the shrubs, people's yards. I mean, they pound cedar. They absolutely love cedar.
I took my daughter fly fishing. I have some camps on a trout pond. We went fly fishing on my pond last night. The same thing, when you come down to where my dock is on one side, if you look on the back side of the pond, the cedar, because it's almost all cedar on the southern side, it's nipped and groomed up as high as a deer can reach. It's a definite line all the way across.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It is. That's so they'll do that.
Hey, Al here. I just want to take a minute to talk about our wool gear. Our Big Woods Bucks wool gear it's the best value there is on the market. We have 100% virgin wool clothing, whether it's our packs, pants, jackets, whatever. The virgin wool it's the natural fiber from the sheep, and it wraps into a tight thread. That's what makes it waterproof, pretty much wind resistant, and comfortable to wear. It's quiet for hunting, especially in the big woods. You can't find anything better than wool clothing. So we have ours. It's all made in USA with all U.S. accessories and everything. We've got, years of experience guiding and it's thought that's going into this stuff. So we've tried to keep the average hunter in mind and kept the price point at where people can afford it. We hope you enjoy it. Wear your woolies. Cotton is death.
Another thing that's also fun to find when I'm out hunting is I'll find some conifers. I don't always know if it's spruce or if it's balsam. I can't remember off the top of my head, but a lot of times I'll see those trees fall over, and all of a sudden there'll be 8 million tracks all over it, and you get in, you investigate it, and I think it would be equivalent to like what your guys' old man's beard that you guys get out there. It's that really mossy looking stuff, and they seem to really like that stuff. And I'll find a buck that'll be walking, and all of a sudden he'll veer off to the left or to the right, completely leave his pattern, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna bed. And then I look around and I'm like, oh, where is he going? He found a mushroom on the side of a tree. And literally, I had one buck that I was tracking one time. He was just headed in a certain direction. And I don't know if they can just smell the mushrooms or something, but all of a sudden he started running. And I was like, his tracks are running. I'm like, did I booger him? Like, what's going on? And sure enough, I get up a little bit closer. He started running as soon as he knew that there was a mushroom right there. And he ran right to the tree, and you can see his antler prints in the snow as he's chewing on that mushroom. I see a lot of that up here. Mushrooms are a big food source for the bucks up here. They'll almost every time I follow a track, they'll find some sort of a mushroom on a tree. Generally they find the mushrooms that are lower. It seems like they're only 6 inches off the ground, a foot off the ground, and those are the ones that they seem to always go for.
We noticed when we first started going to Ontario that because it was primarily a conifer forest, and they eat old man's beard in Maine, and a lot of times when you're tracking bucks, if a fir tree's snapped over, they'll go over and eat it. But nothing like it was in Ontario. It was like their main food source up there because they don't have a lot of hardwood like we do, and they don't have a lot of brush and other things for them to feed on. So I was really surprised that the old man's beard in Ontario, Canada is like, that's a primary food source for them. It was crazy.
Yeah. One of the things that's also been kind of fun up here is when you track through the big woods, being that I also am a bow hunter, I really enjoy learning the different patterns of these bucks. And when you track one, it's like they take you through all their sweet spots. And I was just talking with a guy the other day. He was telling me that he's not a tracker, but he found out and discovered the most awesome bow hunting spot because he ended up killing a bunch of bucks out of that spot because he wounded a buck one time. And he thought that the bucks would be bedded right on the edge of the marsh. Well, he ends up it was, or not a marsh, I should say, a swamp. He tracked that buck, and that thing kept going right past the edge and went right out into the middle of this cedar swamp. And there was a nice, like, higher area out there that buck, just high enough that it's out of the water, not like super high. And that buck was spending some time out there. So then when he pieced those things together, all of a sudden it's like, well, if he's doing that, more of them are doing it. And he said that you wouldn't even hardly find any rubs out there. You wouldn't even know that it was this just dynamite buck spot. But once he figured it out by, blood trailing his deer, all of a sudden the pieces came together and he started to kill a lot of nice bucks in that area.
He left his story in the trail. Yep. It's
Yep.
like reading the story.
Yep. Yeah, I've always wanted to do more where I track a buck. So for instance, this last year, one of the things that I actually use, and you guys were kind of alluding to this earlier to me, about, how I track bucks with my bow. I actually love tracking with a bow, because generally I actually get closer, to the bucks because it's usually later season and they don't travel as far. And then the other thing that I really like about doing that is that I can learn some patterns about that deer that could translate to bow hunting it the next year. So I'll try to seek out a certain deer that I know I've been after all year long. But I mean, I've had some of my best encounters ever that I've ever had tracking have happened with my bow. One of them, the best one, it's actually, I've got it as a film on my channel. I had this deer that I had been throwing out some corn for. I was doing some bait hunting at that time. And so we got snow, and it was like October 23rd or something like that. So I was all excited because I'm like, you know what the heck? I'll go out and, track one with my bow. So I get over there and I find his track going right to the bait site. And this was before cell cameras or anything. So I check the camera real quick and I'm like, it's him. It's like a 135-inch 11-pointer, just a beautiful buck. And so I jumped on his track and I'm going real slow because I'm like, he's going to be right here somewhere. And I got back into this spot just not far off the road at all. And there's a little opening in there and I'm like, oh, he's going to be here. Because I had him on camera at like 5 a.m. in the morning, So generally they're getting one last little bite and then going to go bed down before it gets light out. So I'm looking in that opening, and I'm just going real slow. And all of a sudden, I noticed out of the peripheral vision that his track started to turn to the right. And I'm like, uh-oh, that's the J-hook. And no more had I thought the J-hook is happening. And all of a sudden, he busted out of the brush 7 yards from me. And it was a fresh snow, so there's all this snow in the tree, so I couldn't see him there. He's down in this little furrow, in the sand country. They got we have a lot of they'll dig furrows so that they can plant the red pines and stuff. So he was buried down in this furrow ditch, and he busted out at 7 yards. And it's with a bow, it's over at that point. But with a gun, I could have snapshot right at him at point blank. So that's probably the closest encounter I've ever had. But I've been kind of on this personal mission to try and kill one tracking because I don't really ever hear of anyone doing it. And so I've posted a number of videos on my channel doing that. And I have confidence that I could actually do it. And I'm sure that you guys could attest to this, that there are times when you catch up to a buck and if he's unsuspecting, then it becomes a spot and stock, and then you can get in position. So for instance, when I killed that one half rack buck tracking, I snuck right up to him, walked up to him. He was standing there 30 yards looking away from me. He had no idea I was there. That would have been a scenario where if I had had a bow, it doesn't matter if you got a bow or a gun at that point, you can kill that thing. So the scenarios haven't always worked out for me to kill one with a bow yet, but I do think that if you find it in just the right spot in the right time, and he's not, usually you need a good high wind day so you can really sneak in close on him. If I could ever get those conditions, I'm out there with the bow, and I love to follow him like that. And also the other part too is because my tracking season is so short up here. We have a 9-day gun season and a 9-day muzzleloader season in Wisconsin. So if I want to have as much opportunity to develop my skills of tracking, I got to try to either go to Minnesota or go somewhere else, or just continue on in the season with a bow late season to try to keep getting better at this. So that's partly some of the reason too, is I've just tried to been honing in my skills at killing one, and getting close to them like that.
Keep doing it. You'll catch up in the right place at the right time. Them 2 points will connect.
Well, I saw a video you passed up, Hal. Looked like a pretty solid buck this last season. I don't know if I saw that on Facebook or what. But in that scenario, you look at that and it's like, that looked like a spot where you could have possibly shot with a bow if you really wanted to, right? Or was he pretty keyed up, and as soon as you'd draw back, it would have you'd have run? What do you think?
No, you could have got ready. He come running. Scott was with me filming. He came running. He was chasing a doe. I didn't know it at the time, but I could see him coming kind of quartering towards us, and he went behind some spruce. And I knew when I saw him coming, I knew it wasn't like a 200-pound buck. Might have been 180 or something. But anyways, I grunted at him, and he stopped there behind that, beside that spruce tree, a little behind it. He was only 20 yards. And, you could have killed that with a bow.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got that.
See, that's what
Scott's got it edited up. We're going to put it out, the whole film from the whole day there, pretty quick.
Oh, cool. I'll be excited to see that. Yeah, so it's stories like that kind of give me like confidence. Right away when I first got into tracking, it was like I was reading your book and the Benoit's book, and it was like, is this actually possible? And the reason why I started digging into this was because I was having such a hard time getting close or even laying eyes on any sort of a nice buck up here. The big woods hunting is brutal with a bow. And sitting in a deer stand, you can be a little bit lucky with some bait, but even then they pattern you, and it's a very frustrating type of way to hunt. And so when I started picking up your guys' books and reading about it, it was like, it gave me that confidence of like, yeah, I should try this, and sure enough, the more I did it, it's like pretty much every day you set in the woods, you're going to be within at least 150 yards of a nice buck. Maybe even closer. And like, what style of hunting could you ever say that you're going to be able to do that? You might not kill anything, you might not get a shot, but I prefer the odds of knowing that I could be out there and I could actually be in the striking zone on something big and nice almost every day. So that was one of the things that really appealed to me about this style of hunting, getting out and just having action. I honestly, I'm at the point now where I can't hardly sit. I don't like sitting in a deer stand hardly anymore because it's just too boring for me. I like to be moving and exploring, and I kind of crave the adventure piece of it too. So that's a big part of the hunt for me now.
Well, you got the bug now, so let me ask you, when you coming out this way to do it?
Oh man, I would love to do it sometime soon. I've thought about how it would be real fun to get out there and film you guys sometime too. The tricky thing is I got 3 young kids, 5, 3, and 1 right now. So getting time away is pretty tough.
Yeah. Well, they're going to grow up.
Yep. Yeah, I'd like to get out your guys' direction. I'd also like to hit up the Adirondacks at some point too. That would be a really fun hunt, and I think that'd be a pretty cool adventure. But yeah, it'd be cool to get out with you guys and hunt with you guys someday and explore some of that country.
We're not going anywhere. We'll be right here when you get here.
Yeah.
Well, you guys used to come out to Ontario though a little bit. I've there's some big bucks up there. Although the wolves have really decimated that pretty bad now too.
Yeah, they had that. I think it was 2012. They had them 2 bad winters, and it knocked the crap out of them. I know the last trip I made, I said it'll be a while before I ever come back here. I mean, you could, and out there we used to a lot of times, in a lot of places drive and find a track because nobody else did that either. So, but that last year, you could hardly find a track anywhere. I went to a place, I'd shot a buck the year before, and there was really good place, lots of deer. It was a new area they'd opened up. Went back the next year, and there was one buck track that had crossed half full of snow and got on it, and he just kept going all day. There wasn't a deer in there in that area. I mean, it went from, I don't know how many there was, but there was lots and lots of deer to 0, or 1, I should say, in 1 year. So when they go to 0, it's pretty hard to come back from that.
Yep. And I had a buddy that hunted up there too, and it was an incredibly frustrating hunt for him because he couldn't hardly find any deer. So I'd like to still go up there sometime just for the adventure of it. Even if you don't get anything, it's still just it's a fun way to hunt. The other thing too is they have an earlier season up there. Like their rifle season starts, I think it's like mid to late October. So you can get a jump start on tracking, but the problem we keep running into every year, and you guys are hitting the same boat, is that we can't get no snow until mid to late November. So you're almost half of my entire tracking season is thrown out the window just because we can't get no snow and get some cool temperatures early. So that's been a little bit of a bummer the last couple of years. Limited a lot of woods time just because of that.
Yeah, but you still got to get out there even if there's no snow.
Yep.
Deer's still there.
Yeah. I'm so ate up with the bug about buck tracking on snow, and you only got so many brownie points to use as a dad of young kids that I don't use too much of them up anymore, as much as I try to reserve as much of it for the snow.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, you're just a young guy. You got plenty of time.
Yep, absolutely.
Let them kids get older and you'll be able to take your time.
Yeah, I had a fun question for you, Hal, that I was thinking of. I saw you had got baptized this last year. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, went down and took the plunge into. It's called Heel Pond. It's a little pond that's just north of my house, and
yeah, that's cool.
I picked that pond because the mountain that it's at the base of this mountain, and that's the first place that I started deer hunting when I came north to deer hunt. We used to camp. That's where I talked about fishing there, and then when I went in to hunt there, it was at the base of that mountain too, right in that same area there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. That's also one of my favorite parts about the hunt too, is just the time of being outdoors and connecting with God, and that's something that I want to tap into more as I get into hunting now too, because I'm typically a very driven person and can make it all about the task of trying to kill a big buck, that you miss out on the if you'd say the spiritual experience of being close to God out there. So as I'm getting more into this, I'm wanting to make sure that's a key part of that experience out in the woods, and that time of prayer and just enjoying God's creation, slowing down a little bit and soaking it up.
Yeah. You ought to get, you don't live where do you live in Wisconsin? Southern?
Real close to Lake Superior. I'm about as far north as you can go in Wisconsin.
Oh, and you're on the northeast then?
Northwest side of the state.
Northwest, yeah. Northwest, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Billy Moles doesn't live too far from you then.
He's not. He actually just spoke at our church. He came and did a sportsman's dinner at our church, so I got to chat with him for a little bit, and I saw that he came and went hunting with you guys this last year. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Did he tell you about shooting at the buck?
I didn't get to talk to him about that, but I did get to hear about because he came and spoke not this year but last year, so it was before he had come to be with at your place.
I got you.
So yeah. He's a super cool guy though. That guy is he's an animal. He is driven.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Yep. Well,
I guess we've chatted everything about over, haven't we? So tell us, so what's your, I forget, forgive me for forgetting. What is your YouTube channel?
Stillwater Outdoors.
Stillwater Outdoors, yeah. All right.
3 different words, Stillwater Outdoors.
And I want to thank you personally. I didn't realize until Scott had told me that you edited some stuff for me, so I want to thank you for doing that.
Oh, appreciate that. Yeah, it was fun. That was your bare ground hunting video, I think.
Yep, sounds right. Yeah, I'm hoping they're working on one right now. I lost my dad last November, and a week later I shot a nice buck. I actually had a client with me. I rattled in 2 bucks at once, and he didn't get his buck, but I got mine. So we're trying to put some clips together for that. There was no snow, that's why I was rattling. But yeah, so I'm not sure. I think Dean's working on that, but Scott had told me that you had done that one for me on the bare ground. Was that the one where Brian was with me and we found all the scrape line? Was that the one that you did?
Yes. Yep. You found a bunch of scrapes on that one.
That's right where I killed. That's right where I killed my buck this year.
Oh,
yeah,
was
right
it?
where that.
That's cool.
I can't remember. It was probably like 3 years ago that Brian was in there with me, but I've killed 2 big bucks in there the last 2 years. And the year that Brian was with me, when we didn't have the snow, we found like in a half a mile on this old woods trail, we found like 25 scrapes. And right at the bottom of that, where it comes out into this cut, there's a signpost there. And probably 100 yards from that signpost, I rattled in those 2 bucks and killed one this year.
That's cool. That's cool.
You might recognize if you see the woods and say, hey, that looks familiar. It might be some of the same woods.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. You also snuck up on, I think, a doe or something in that film, if I remember right.
Yep, that was in, that was the next piece down, but yeah, that's all like a half an hour from where I live. I live about an hour south of here, but we hunt a half an hour north of where I live. So yeah, it's all good country. It's big woods. Plus I get an extra week of muzzleloader season down there.
Yep. That's cool.
Good stuff. So yeah, check out Nathan's channel there, Stillwater Outdoors. Teach you how to hunt out there in Wisconsin. You need more hunters out there to help you out?
There's decent hunting pressure out here. That's the problem when you're promoting stuff with a certain style of hunting. Like I never run into trackers anywhere up here. I've in all my years of driving roads, I've come across one guy that was a tracker, and it was because he was a guy that had he had gone to a seminar for Todd Hovel, who was my mentor out here. So, it's not as big of a thing out here, but I think that if I would have killed about 5 or 10 big bucks on camera by now, the woods would probably be full of them because everybody like, wow, it could actually be done. But since I can't ever do it, they're probably like, oh, that's a waste of time.
Yeah, I think probably everybody out there thinks, oh, they can do that out in Maine, the Adirondacks. We can't do that here, right?
Yeah.
You're an untapped market.
Creatures of habit, though. It's a creature of habit. The bait piles and the trail cameras suck people in so much.
Oh,
I don't know if you could really hardly pull people away from that. Even if I started killing a bunch of them, people started doing it. there are people that are so sucked into the corn hunting and the trail cameras, cell cameras. It's huge up here.
Yep. All right then. Well, let's wrap it up, and we got to get some supper here.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
Thanks for coming on, and thanks for our sponsors for putting this on for us. Support them. Hit the subscription button. Bell. Click to subscribe. Am I getting this right? Click to subscribe. Hit the dinger. Hit the bell to subscribe. No. Click the...
You're going to have to do some editing on this one, Scott.
Well, you know what I mean. Everybody knows what I mean.
They'll figure it out. They'll figure it out.
Tune in. Glad to have you. So until next time, good luck on the trail.